well as Shawnee County. Residents in the area should expect the thunderstorms to push through the area for the next couple of hours before pushing out of the area. We'll have more details on that in a moment, but first let's check up on your tropical weather update, brought to you by Home Depot. Taking a look at the big picture, boy, has it been a very active week, and this weekend we continue to be very concerned as additional activity is brewing in the Caribbean. Let's take a closer look out towards the Gulf, and as you know, we are no longer looking at a tropical storm, but a depression still holding together across the southeastern areas of Georgia. Very, very heavy rainfall. As you know, the tropical storm did push inland over the panhandle of Florida very early this morning. Some of us have experienced as much as 8 inches of rainfall, and some localized reports may even be higher, so please do seek shelter, especially across the Florida panhandle. Avoid travel. Eventually, a lot of the moisture will push further to the north. Overnight tonight, the heaviest rainfall likely to fall here across South Carolina, and as you can see, the entire area of South Carolina under a watch for flooding, flash flooding. Now, right now, Florence, you are under a flash flood warning. That means flooding is occurring, and this means travel will be very difficult in this area. And some of us are going to have a problem if we live in a low-lying area. We need to head to high ground. And looking at the southeast corner, you can see that this is a lot of tropical moisture spreading statewide. So it's not like you can go to the next city and get away from the thunderstorm activity. That's not going to happen. We're talking about a very broad area of torrential rain, and this will continue to be a problem through the overnight hours. Perhaps we'll see a little more relief as we get into the wee hours of the morning, when we expect a lot of this moisture to push into North Carolina and eventually make its way between the coastal area and into the Virginia vicinity. And then we go further out, and there's Isaac. Now, Isaac, the forecast is looking not too good, because we're expecting you to strengthen. Now, although right now you're a long, long way from the threat of land, we are talking about the possibility of another, a very large area, a very favorable area for development. So this is of some concern. Right now, Tropical Storm Isaac is located about, over 1,000 miles east of the Lesser Antilles. So we've got a ways to go, but keep in mind, it's already a tropical storm. We look at the satellite picture, and you can see a very well-organized inflow, as well as also seeing that circulation of the outflow here, and very close to the central area of circulation. We've got that overcast, and very organized characteristics continue to prevail. As the longer we look at this, the more we can see that's very favorable about its development. Taking a look out here towards the coastal area, if you're doing some traveling, maybe going to Acapulco, Mexico, or the Baja, certainly this is of some concern. It's a tropical depression. Well, hey, just updated here. No longer looking at a tropical depression, but still looking at a lot of tropical moisture. More details back home. Stay with us. Weather Center next.
This program was sponsored by
Watch. I'm Bob Child. Now, classically, for the Atlantic hurricane season, we see a peak in activity about September 8th, but there's also a secondary peak that occurs about October 8th, 10th or so, and so we still are looking at a lot of activity, and to date, they've been rather normal so far this year, and we've seen a lot of activity recently, haven't we? Of course, as those hurricanes or storm centers came to the eastern U.S., they underwent a lot of shear out of the southwest, or frontal boundaries, a lot of things to take them and jettison them on off into the North Atlantic to where they didn't become too much of a threat or a problem. So we're looking at the feature. There goes Helene, still has some good organization, but going quickly off into the colder northern Atlantic waters. We also have a couple of upper level disturbances in advance of Hurricane Isaac out here that we're taking a look at. They don't pose a threat. And right now, while we don't have anything at the surface, the one thing to watch, and this is the time of year to watch this area, is the southern, southwestern portion of the Caribbean. This is a good breeding ground for this time of year for late season hurricanes. And while there's nothing organized right now, you can see for yourself there's a great deal of organization there. So that's something we'll look at. About the last time we can look at the visible satellite imagery from Hurricane Isaac. Has beautiful outflow boundary around it, good shaped form. Not necessarily a clear, well-defined eye. Had been up at a Category 3 hurricane, but had been weakening somewhat down to 110 miles an hour. Still almost 1,600 miles east of the Antilles Arc in the Leeward and Windward Islands, but it does have that northwesterly component to its track. And while all things are possible with a hurricane, the probabilities with Isaac being much of a threat to anybody right now really don't look good. So that could be good news for the islands, but it's so far out there right now, we want to stay tuned with that. Behind Isaac, a couple of areas of instability coming off this one, at least running lower right now, but probably won't have the favorable conditions to form. We think right now that's something we'll be watching. Right now, there's nothing to watch in the Gulf of Mexico. So for those of you heading on vacation, maybe you're already down in the Yucatan Peninsula. You're looking at some very nice weather, although it is certainly stormy down the extreme southern edge of the Caribbean. And we look to the Pacific as well. If you're vacationing on the west coast of Mexico, you're looking at some delightful air there, and in a lot of cases the wind's flowing offshore. Quite nice. Helene pushing on off into the North Atlantic, still some good moisture with it, but that frontal boundary that's coming through the eastern U.S. helped to bring Helene in and push her even further south in the southern Appalachians. And we've got some light showers working its way through, but it is very light. The big story is the cooler temperatures behind it. So insofar as driving problems, we certainly had the problems earlier this weekend with the heavier snows that fell from the system, but right now we're down to the tail end. There's not much. The heavier rains that could cause driving problems for you have been down through Arkansas, portions of Texas, and heading into Tennessee. That's the heavier rains. The rest of this very light. Also, I might add, checking the airport delays, that in the Texas area from Dallas to Houston, a lot of the major airports, they're looking at some ground stops or departure delays of up to an hour. So you might want to call ahead right now because of the rain and thunderstorms en route for those areas. And same probably could be true for Nashville, although they didn't show up from that. Some storms could be severe. Not really looking for that in advance of the front. Tomorrow we'll push that area to the east. Could be some severe there. Not terribly favorable for that, but we did have one earlier today with gusts of wind at 70 miles an hour. Otherwise, the snows tail off from this system.
Well, this tropical season seems to be rather inactive. That's anything but the case, really. In fact, we have a brand new tropical depression to talk about in the Atlantic. With all the details, here's Steve Lyons.
Well, thanks, Jeff. And there is a new tropical depression number 14 out there. Let's look at the large-scale picture, and I'll show you where everything is. You can see Hurricane Isaac out there. That's still a powerful Category 2 hurricane, bordering on Category 3, moving off to the west-northwest. Our new tropical depression is this system down here to the southeast of Isaac. It's moving almost due west, but it's moving west faster than Isaac is, so there's going to be some type of interaction with the two. The forecast is for it to continue to move to the west, but there's a possibility it could get swept up in the wake of Isaac and take a little more west-northwest track. We'll have to wait and see. We also have a low pressure center over here in the extreme western Caribbean we're watching. That typically would move to the northwest or north-northwest, and right now it's showing no signs of movement at all. And here's the latest on Isaac as of 5 p.m. You can see it's still way out there, 1,300 miles east of Leeward Islands, winds 105, moving to the west-northwest at 10, and that means it's going to miss the islands, we think, to the north, and then continue on to the northwest. Pressure is 970 millibars, so that makes it a fairly strong Category 2, and you can see it here. Now notice this big line or plume coming out here. That's a protective barrier the hurricane has put up in response to these westerly winds that have come in, and as long as that barrier is out there, the hurricane is going to maintain its strength. If that barrier collapses in on it, you'll see it weaken quickly. The system down here, this little curly Q way down in the bottom right hand of your screen, that's our new tropical depression. It's forecast to become tropical storm within 12 hours moving due west. And if that were to become a storm, it'll be named Joyce this year. Tropical depression 14, here are the statistics. 11 north, 31.3 west, 500 miles west-southwest of Cape Verde Islands, winds 35, so it's poised to become a tropical storm within the next within 5 miles an hour, so moving west at 15. Now you can see the upper level flow here basically out of the west ahead of our Isaac, and you can see the Isaac's outflow is affecting our tropical depression a little bit as well. So there's some interaction there already. We'll have to monitor that very carefully. Right now none of them pose a threat to land, but keep in mind in September these are the tracks we typically find, so both of these would be tending to move toward the west or west-northwest, and this one over here would tend to move to the northwest. We'll monitor that one for further development. And you can see this low pressure center right here off the coast of, just to the north and east of Costa Rica right now. A lot of showers out ahead of it, but that has the potential to become a tropical depression over the next several days. Gulf of Mexico, very quiet, cold front coming through the northwestern portion, and the eastern Pacific is very quiet. Let's get back to Jeff in the studio now.
All right, Steve, and again, things continue. Although, again, because we haven't had but 2 landfalling tropical systems in the U.S., the perception is that it's been rather inactive. And yes, we haven't had any hurricanes of any great strength make landfall. But number of systems, yeah, it's been active. In fact, it's been near or now slightly above average if TD14 becomes a named system.